Mournful Wanderer, Sample 2. Looking up from her diary, Alice finally beheld the world as it currently was, harsh and cruel. The musty air, combined with the odious oxygen, evoked a sentiment of undying tragedy and grief, the latter of which pierced the walls with a force that could not be measured by human consciousness. Once bright and full of color, the chamber had assumed the form of a lifeless cavern. The sunlight, what little there was of it, only lightly pierced through the shuttered windows. A gentle breeze soothed the rotting structure that presided over her, piercing the decaying walls with a force that could not be perceived. Her lungs released two passionate breaths, the second one being deeper than the first. With every breath, with every sigh, her face became paler, less vibrant, and more prone to melancholy expressions. Her gaze steered towards the left side of the chamber, little drops of moisture escaping from her already weary eyes. Even through the thick line of moisture, Alice could still perceive the vague underpinnings of a portrait. The portrait hovered against the decomposing wall, its vitality half hidden by the encroaching darkness. Further complicating matters, the withered paint distorted the lower part of the endurable jawline, giving the expression an almost otherworldly quality. Once thought to be seemingly unalterable, the thinly drawn eyebrows, usually relaxed and tranquil, suddenly slid closer together. For a moment, Alice perceived that she was dreaming, but her dreams, as she already noted on various occasions, often proved to be far more fantastical than what appeared to be occurring before her very eyes. The alteration was so subtle, so uneventful, that her gaze almost overlooked it, and had it not been for her uncanny attention to detail, a quality that she both loved and hated, the true nature of the portrait might have remained in utter obscurity. Just as Alice's nerves started to dissipate, a thunderous pounding penetrated the silence of the room, the source of which remained unknown. The pounding became harsh, urgent, and chaotic, ironically all of the things that Alice despised. Her eyelids contracted, on the verge of shutting in the midst of the incoherent banging. The outside world had finally returned to torment her. Aside from some preposterous miracle, there didn't seem to be any way of avoiding the unpleasant necessities of civilian life. Mustering all of the remaining strength that she had left, Alice's arthritic muscles forced her toes to slide against the splinter-infused floor, their precise destination still unclear. Faintly in the distance, Alice detected slight pigmentations of sunlight, the majority of them coming from the window that rested above the doorway. Still in a state of lethargy, Alice's hands only slightly enveloped the rotting door handle. The surface of the door, unlike so many times in the past, felt more like a prison than an actual entranceway. The knob, upon further inspection, felt like ice. Worse still, her hands appeared to be incapable of making any significant movements, with the exception of perhaps a few vague twitches of tension-filled energy. Her fingertips gently tugged on the door, only about half as strong as they once had been. Her gaze aligned with the movements of her hands, neither swaying nor faltering, like it was always intended to operate. Alice peered upward, briefly staring into the dimly lit glass that presided over the door. Behind the thinly stained glass, the vague silhouette of a figure could be detected by Alice's failing eyesight. The figure remained almost motionless, just barely tilting against the backdrop of the fading sunlight. The sight of the figure, especially when paired with the knowledge that only danger existed outside of her domain, caused her skin to stretch against the edges of her cheeks. At the same time, her sapphire eyes pressed against the back of her skull, desperate for a way out. As the door departed from the taut hinges, the afternoon light illuminated the gentle facial features of a seemingly non-threatening presence. His gaze was wide and broad, evoking a sense of mindful solace. Alice folded her hands, only faint gasps escaping her chapped lips. The man firmly extended his fingers, his exact intentions still not yet known. Alice flinched, still greatly unaccustomed to even the most innocent of pleasantries. How long had it been, Alice thought to herself, since she had spoken to a human soul? Many years before, Alice considered herself to be capable of interacting with even the most unpleasant of individuals, but the agonies of time, forever changing and transforming, had quietly swept over her approachable qualities, at last rendering them inoperative. Once more she peered up at his aging features, altogether taken aback by the subtle wrinkles that formulated around the base of his chin.